If you're over 60, what you eat at dinner tonight could determine whether you wake up tomorrow with clear vision or whether you'll struggle to recognize your own grandchildren's faces in 5 years. And the answer isn't some exotic superfood or expensive supplement. It's a simple fruit that most people completely overlook, and the scientific evidence behind it is absolutely staggering. I'm Dr. Emily Hartman, a vascular and integrative medicine specialist, and over my 23 years of clinical practice, I've witnessed thousands of patients struggle with deteriorating circulation and vision loss. But I've also seen remarkable transformations when people make one simple addition to their evening routine. What I'm about to share with you tonight could genuinely change the trajectory of your health. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications so you never miss another health tip made especially for you. If you find this video helpful, please leave your questions and video suggestions in the comments below. I read every single one, and it helps me create more content to help people just like you. Now, let me tell you about Margaret Santos, a 72-year-old retired school teacher from Curitiba. Margaret came into my office 3 years ago, frustrated and frightened. She told me that reading bedtime stories to her grandchildren had become impossible because the words would blur together. Driving at night terrified her because the streetlights created halos that made it dangerous to see. But what really broke her heart was that she could no longer see the expressions on her grandchildren's faces clearly during video calls. Margaret had been dealing with poor circulation for years. Her feet were always cold. She had that persistent tingling sensation in her legs, and she'd wake up with cramping in her calves almost every night. Her previous doctor had told her it was just part of getting older, that she should accept it. But Margaret wasn't ready to accept a diminished life. She wanted answers. When I examined Margaret, I found exactly what I suspected. Her peripheral circulation was compromised. Her capillaries, those tiny blood vessels that feed every cell in your body, weren't getting adequate blood flow. And here's what most people don't understand. Your eyes have some of the most delicate and demanding blood vessels in your entire body. The retina, that thin layer of tissue at the back of your eye, requires constant, rich blood flow to function properly. When circulation declines, your vision pays the price first. I explained to Margaret that her circulation issues and her vision problems weren't two separate conditions. They were connected. And the solution wasn't necessarily medication, at least not as the first line of defense. The solution was something she could start implementing that very evening. I told her about blueberries. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Blueberries? That's the big revelation? But stay with me, because what these small berries can do for your vascular system and your eyes is nothing short of remarkable. Blueberries contain incredibly powerful compounds called anthocyanins. These are the pigments that give blueberries their deep blue-purple color, and they're absolute powerhouses for your blood vessels. When you eat blueberries, these anthocyanins get absorbed into your bloodstream and go to work immediately, strengthening the walls of your capillaries, reducing inflammation in your vascular system, and improving something called endothelial function. That's the ability of your blood vessels to dilate and contract properly, to deliver blood exactly where your body needs it most. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your eyes, particularly your retinas, are packed with these tiny capillaries. In fact, your retina has one of the highest metabolic demands of any tissue in your body. It needs constant oxygen and nutrients, and when those capillaries start to weaken or become damaged, your vision deteriorates. The anthocyanins in blueberries specifically target and protect these delicate eye capillaries. They reduce oxidative stress, they strengthen the blood vessel walls, and they improve blood flow to the macula, that central part of your retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision. I told Margaret to eat half a cup of blueberries every evening with dinner. Not in the morning, not as a snack, but specifically with her evening meal. And there's a reason for this timing. When you eat blueberries with dinner, those beneficial compounds circulate through your system overnight when your body is doing its repair and regeneration work. Your circulation improves while you sleep, and you wake up with better blood flow throughout your entire body, including your eyes. If you're still watching and finding this information valuable, comment 1 below to show me you're paying attention. It really helps me know what content resonates with you. Now, Margaret was skeptical at first. She'd tried various supplements and dietary changes before with minimal results. But I assured her that this was different. This wasn't about a magic pill or some fad diet. This was about giving her body the specific nutrients it needed to repair and strengthen her vascular system naturally. Margaret started her blueberry routine that very week, half a cup every evening with dinner. Sometimes fresh, sometimes frozen. It doesn't matter because frozen blueberries retain their nutritional value remarkably well. She'd add them to yogurt, blend them into a smoothie, or simply eat them plain with a handful of nuts. Within 6 weeks, Margaret called my office. She was crying, but these were tears of joy. She told me she'd driven at night for the first time in months without fear. The halos around streetlights had diminished significantly. She could read to her grandchildren again without straining, and when she had her follow-up appointment, her circulation tests showed measurable improvement. Her capillary refill time had improved, the coldness in her feet had reduced, and most importantly, her retinal scan showed healthier blood vessels. But if that impressed you, wait until you hear about what happened with Carlos Oliveira, a 67-year-old taxi driver from São Paulo. Carlos had been driving taxis for 42 years. It was his passion, his livelihood, and his identity. But over the past year, he'd noticed something terrifying. His peripheral vision was failing him. He'd miss cars approaching from the side. He'd have trouble judging distances. His night vision had deteriorated so badly that he'd stopped taking evening shifts, which cut his income in half. Carlos also had a history of high blood pressure and prediabetes, both conditions that wreak havoc on your circulation. When he came to see me, he was desperate. He told me that giving up driving would mean giving up his independence, his purpose, his entire way of life. He was only 67, too young to retire, but he felt his body was betraying him. I ran comprehensive tests on Carlos. His circulation was indeed compromised, but what really concerned me was the state of his retinal blood vessels. Under examination, I could see microhemorrhages, tiny ruptures in the capillaries at the back of his eyes. This is common in people with circulation issues and prediabetes, but it's also progressive. If we didn't intervene, Carlos would face serious vision loss. Here's what most people don't realize. The same processes that damage blood vessels throughout your body, inflammation, oxidative stress, elevated blood sugar, they hit your eyes particularly hard. Your retinal capillaries are among the smallest and most delicate in your body. They're often the first to show damage and the first to fail. I put Carlos on the same protocol, half a cup of blueberries every evening with dinner. But I also explained to him the science behind why this timing matters so much. You see, anthocyanins have a relatively short half-life in your bloodstream. They're most effective when you consume them regularly and at optimal times. Evening consumption means they're working through your system during the night, when your body's repair mechanisms are most active. Your blood pressure naturally decreases at night, which is when your capillaries do much of their maintenance and repair work. The anthocyanins from blueberries support this process. Additionally, blueberries help regulate blood sugar levels. The fiber in blueberries slows down the absorption of sugar from your evening meal, preventing those dangerous blood sugar spikes that damage blood vessels. For someone like Carlos, with prediabetes, this was absolutely crucial. Carlos was disciplined. Every single evening, without fail, he ate his half cup of blueberries. He told me later that it became a ritual, something he actually looked forward to. Sometimes he'd eat them fresh with a little bit of Greek yogurt. Other times he'd warm frozen blueberries and have them as a warm compote with cinnamon. The variety kept it interesting, but the consistency was key. 3 months later, Carlos came back for his follow-up. The change was remarkable. His peripheral vision had improved significantly. The microhemorrhages in his retinas had stabilized, with no new ones appearing. His blood sugar levels had improved. His blood pressure was better controlled. But most importantly, Carlos had returned to evening shifts. He was driving confidently again, and he told me he felt like he'd gotten a second chance at life. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is happening in your body when you eat these blueberries? Let me break down the science in a way that makes sense. When you consume blueberries, the anthocyanins are absorbed in your digestive tract and enter your bloodstream. These compounds then travel throughout your vascular system, and they have several critical effects. First, they reduce inflammation in your blood vessel walls. Chronic inflammation is one of the primary drivers of vascular deterioration. It makes your blood vessels stiff, narrow, and prone to damage. The anthocyanins act as powerful anti-inflammatory agents, calming this inflammation and allowing your blood vessels to function more efficiently. Second, they improve something called nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is a molecule that your blood vessels produce to help them dilate and contract properly. As we age, our bodies produce less nitric oxide, which means our blood vessels become less responsive and less efficient at delivering blood where it's needed. The compounds in blueberries boost nitric oxide production, essentially helping your blood vessels work like they did when you were younger. Third, and this is particularly important for your eyes, anthocyanins protect against oxidative damage. Your eyes are constantly exposed to light, which generates free radicals that can damage the delicate structures of your retina. The antioxidants in blueberries neutralize these free radicals before they can cause harm. Think of it as providing your eyes with their own internal sunglasses, protecting them from damage 24 hours a day. Fourth, blueberries strengthen capillary walls. They literally make the walls of your smallest blood vessels stronger and less permeable. This means less leakage, less inflammation, and better delivery of nutrients to your tissues. In your eyes, this translates directly to clearer vision and healthier retinal function. But perhaps most fascinating is what blueberries do for something called the blood-retinal barrier. This is a selective barrier that controls what substances can pass from your bloodstream into your retina. As we age, this barrier becomes more permeable, allowing harmful substances to reach the retina while preventing beneficial nutrients from getting through. Studies have shown that the compounds in blueberries help maintain the integrity of this barrier, keeping your retinas healthier for longer. Let me tell you about another patient, Helena Ferreira, a 69-year-old nurse from Belo Horizonte. Helena had spent her entire career caring for others, working long shifts in hospitals, always putting her patients first. But by the time she reached her late 60s, Helena was struggling. She had developed significant circulation problems in her legs. Walking more than a few blocks would leave her with painful cramping. Her feet were constantly cold, even in warm weather. But what frightened her most was her vision. She'd noticed that straight lines would sometimes appear wavy, colors seemed less vibrant, and she'd occasionally see small dark spots floating across her field of vision. Helena knew enough about medicine to understand these were warning signs. She came to me worried that she was developing macular degeneration, a condition that runs in her family, and one she'd seen rob many elderly patients of their independence. She told me, with tears in her eyes, that she'd spent her life helping others see clearly, and now she was losing her own vision. When I examined Helena, I found that she was indeed showing early signs of age-related macular degeneration. Her circulation was compromised throughout her body, but especially concerning was the circulation to her eyes. The macula, that central part of the retina responsible for detailed vision, requires incredibly rich blood flow to function properly. Helena's wasn't getting adequate perfusion. I explained to Helena that while we couldn't reverse the damage that had already occurred, we could potentially slow or even halt the progression. And the key was improving her microcirculation, the blood flow through the tiniest vessels in her body. This is where blueberries become absolutely critical. The anthocyanins in blueberries have been shown in numerous studies to specifically benefit macular health. They increase blood flow to the macula, they reduce oxidative stress in retinal cells, and they support the health of the retinal pigment epithelium, the layer of cells that nourishes and protects your photoreceptors. For someone like Helena, with early macular degeneration, this nutritional intervention was potentially vision-saving. I put Helena on the evening blueberry protocol, but I also explained to her the importance of consistency. This wasn't a quick fix. This was about providing her body with the tools it needed to repair and maintain itself over the long term. Half a cup of blueberries every evening, without exception. Helena was committed. She understood the stakes. She started her routine immediately. She'd buy fresh blueberries when they were in season and freeze them herself so she'd always have a supply. She became creative with how she consumed them, making sure she never got bored. Sometimes she'd mix them with cottage cheese. Other times she'd add them to oatmeal. And occasionally she'd just eat them plain, savoring each one, knowing it was medicine for her eyes. 6 months later, Helena returned for her comprehensive eye exam. Her optometrist was surprised. The progression of her macular degeneration had stopped. Not slowed, stopped. The drusen deposits, those yellow waste products that accumulate under the retina in macular degeneration, hadn't increased. Her visual acuity had actually improved slightly. But most remarkably, the waviness she'd been experiencing, that distortion of straight lines, had diminished significantly. Helena told me that her circulation had improved overall as well. The cramping in her legs had decreased. Her feet weren't as cold. She had more energy. But most importantly, she had hope. She knew that she was actively fighting for her vision, giving her body what it needed to stay healthy. Now, you might be thinking, is there something special about eating blueberries specifically at dinner? Why not breakfast or lunch? This is an excellent question, and the answer is rooted in chronobiology, how our bodies function differently at different times of day. Your body's repair and regeneration processes are most active during sleep. Your blood pressure decreases, your heart rate slows, and your body shifts into maintenance mode. This is when your cells do their housekeeping, repairing damage, clearing out waste products, and rebuilding tissues. By consuming blueberries with your evening meal, you're providing your body with powerful antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds right when it needs them most for this overnight repair work. Additionally, the circulation to your extremities, including your eyes, follows a circadian rhythm. Blood flow to peripheral tissues is actually enhanced during the night when you're at rest. By having anthocyanins circulating in your system during this time, you're maximizing their delivery to the places that need them most. There's also the matter of how blueberries interact with your evening meal. When eaten with dinner, particularly a meal that contains some healthy fats and protein, the absorption of anthocyanins is enhanced. The fats help with the uptake of these compounds, and the protein helps stabilize their release into your bloodstream over several hours. Let me share one more case with you, because this one really illustrates the full potential of this simple intervention. Roberto Costa, an 81-year-old retired engineer from Florianopolis. Roberto came to me in what I can only describe as a state of resignation. He'd been told by multiple doctors that his failing circulation and deteriorating vision were simply inevitable consequences of aging. He'd been prescribed various medications for his blood pressure and cholesterol, but nothing had addressed the fundamental problem. His microcirculation was failing. Roberto described his life in heartbreaking terms. He said he felt like he was watching the world through a foggy window that kept getting cloudier. He could no longer read the newspaper, a daily ritual he'd cherished for 60 years. He couldn't see his wife's face clearly across the dinner table. He'd given up his beloved hobby of building model ships because he couldn't see the tiny details. He told me he felt like he was slowly disappearing from his own life. When I examined Roberto, I found severe microvascular compromise. His circulation tests showed poor perfusion throughout his extremities. His retinal examination revealed significant vascular changes, narrowed arterioles, microaneurysms, and areas of reduced perfusion. By conventional measures, Roberto's prognosis wasn't good. He was on a trajectory toward significant vision loss and potentially more serious vascular events. But I've learned over my years of practice that the body has remarkable healing capacity when given the right support. I told Roberto that I couldn't promise miracles, but I could offer him a fighting chance. We started him on the evening blueberry protocol, along with some other dietary modifications to support vascular health. Roberto, despite his age and his initial skepticism, committed fully. He told me later that it gave him something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of control over his own health. He wasn't just passively accepting decline. He was actively working to improve. The changes didn't happen overnight. This isn't a dramatic transformation story where everything changed in a week. But over months, gradually and steadily, Roberto improved. His first sign was that the brain fog he'd been experiencing started to lift. He felt mentally sharper. Then he noticed that his chronic cold feet were warmer. The numbness and tingling in his hands decreased. But the real breakthrough came at his 6-month follow-up. Roberto's visual acuity had improved enough that he could read again. Not perfectly, not like when he was young, but enough to enjoy his newspaper again. He'd returned to his model shipbuilding, and when he looked at his wife across the dinner table, he could see her smile clearly. He told me that eating blueberries every evening had given him back his life. What I want you to understand is that Roberto's story isn't unique. I've seen similar improvements in dozens of patients who've committed to this simple practice, and the science backs it up. Study after study has shown that regular consumption of blueberries improves vascular function, reduces markers of oxidative stress, enhances circulation, and protects retinal health. But here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't about eating blueberries once or twice and expecting miracles. This is about consistent, daily consumption. Half a cup every evening. It becomes part of your routine, like brushing your teeth. You're not taking a medication with side effects. You're nourishing your body with exactly what it needs to maintain and repair its vascular system. Now, I want to address some common questions I hear. First, do the blueberries have to be fresh? No. Frozen blueberries are equally effective. In fact, because they're frozen at peak ripeness, they often retain their nutritional value better than fresh berries that have been sitting on a shelf for days. Frozen blueberries are also more economical and available year-round. Second, can you take blueberry supplements instead? While supplements can provide some benefits, whole blueberries are far superior. The fiber, the variety of antioxidants, the synergistic compounds that work together, you can't replicate that in a pill. Plus, eating whole fruit is satisfying in a way that popping a capsule isn't. It engages your senses, it becomes a ritual, and that psychological component matters. Third, will eating more than half a cup give better results? Not necessarily. More isn't always better. Half a cup provides an optimal dose of anthocyanins without excessive sugar intake. It's about consistency, not quantity. Fourth, what if you don't like blueberries? Well, I'd encourage you to experiment with different ways of preparing them. Warmed with a touch of cinnamon, blended into a smoothie, mixed with yogurt and nuts, there are countless ways to make them palatable. But if you truly can't tolerate them, other dark berries like blackberries or blackcurrants can provide similar benefits, though blueberries have been the most extensively studied. So what should you do with this information? First, if you're over 60 and experiencing any circulation issues, vision changes, or just want to protect your vascular and eye health proactively, start tonight. Add half a cup of blueberries to your evening meal. Make it a non-negotiable part of your routine. Second, be patient. You're not looking for overnight transformation. You're investing in your long-term health. Give it at least 3 months before you evaluate the results. Keep track of how you feel. Notice changes in your vision, your energy levels, your circulation. Third, and this is critically important, continue to see your doctor regularly. This isn't a replacement for medical care. This is a complement to it. If you have existing eye conditions or circulation problems, you need proper medical monitoring and treatment. But adding blueberries to your routine can enhance whatever treatment plan you're on. Fourth, consider what else you're doing that might be undermining your vascular health. Are you smoking? That needs to stop. Are you sedentary? You need to move. Are you eating a lot of processed foods high in sugar and unhealthy fats? Those need to be minimized. Blueberries are powerful, but they work best as part of an overall healthy lifestyle. Your circulation and your vision are precious. They determine your quality of life, your independence, your ability to engage with the world around you. The choices you make today, what you eat tonight at dinner, will influence your health trajectory for years to come. Half a cup of blueberries every evening is such a small investment for such potentially profound returns. Remember Margaret, who can now read to her grandchildren? Remember Carlos, who returned to driving confidently? Remember Helena, who stopped the progression of her macular degeneration? Remember Roberto, who got his life back at 81? These aren't exceptional cases. These are examples of what happens when you give your body the specific nutrients it needs to maintain and repair itself. If this information has been valuable to you, please share it with someone you care about who's over 60. Leave a comment below telling me if you're going to start this practice. I want to hear from you. I want to know how this works for you. And if you have questions or want me to cover related topics, let me know in the comments. Your health is not predetermined. You have more control than you might think. Start tonight. Half a cup of blueberries with dinner. It's simple. It's affordable, it's backed by science, and it could genuinely change your life. Take care of those blood vessels, protect those eyes, and give yourself the best chance at vibrant, clear-sighted aging. Thank you for watching.